So over the last 2 years of traveling the world, I've made over $150,000. Now, this is revenue. It's not profit. It's not the money that I kept. But moving forwards on this channel from now on, I'm not going to be talking about revenue numbers. I've talked a lot about revenue numbers in the past and how I've hit 10K in a month, $14,000 in 1 month, and all this kind of stuff. But the problem with those metrics and a lot of the metrics that you see people sharing online is that they are not an accurate representation of how much money is actually being kept. And moving forward, I will only be talking about how much money is being kept. So out of this 150,000 plus dollars, how much of it did I keep? Well, after all business expenses, after all taxes, looking at around 40% of it was actually kept. Now you do the maths on that. So it goes from this big glamorous number to something way less, which, if you're looking at a lot of people online that talk about numbers, generally speaking, after all expenses and taxes, they're mostly going to be left with around 50% in profit margins. Now, next year, my focus is going to be to maximize my revenue. So I want to at least double or triple my revenue from the previous years, which has been an average of around $75,000. And I want to maintain a profit margin after taxes of at least 80%. That's going to be very difficult to do just because of the nature of the way my company is set up right now. I've got my company set up in the UK, so I have to pay at least between 20% and 25% corporation tax. As soon as I move my company outside of the UK, and the fact that I'm no longer a tax resident in the UK as well, I'll be able to lower my tax rate, and I'll also be able to keep more of the income that I make. So I could easily increase my overall profit margin to 90% or more after all expenses and after all taxes, which is really the goal for me. Next year, I want to set the foundation of this new offer that I'm creating and gain some case studies and get some clients coming in. And then in 2027, I want to move my company completely out of the UK and just start operating from a global structure that I can use, where I can essentially keep most of what I'm making. Now, in terms of this, and by the way, I think I would have included like a screenshot in the beginning of this, but when I say over $150,000, I'm being very conservative with those numbers. So in terms of what was processed in my Stripe account in the years of 2024 and 2025, it was £130,000, which, if you convert that to dollars, is currently where the currency exchange rate currently sits. That's over $170,000. Now, previously, I think the exchange rate was a bit lower, but even then, it's easily over $150,000 in revenue over the last 2 years. And that's not even accounting for direct bank transfers of one-off projects that I've had with clients as well. So my total revenue over the last 2 years could easily be over £140,000. But I'm gonna keep it a low estimate and just say that I've made $150,000 in revenue over the last 2 years. And the crazy part is, I made this whilst traveling the world and working on average of less than 3 hours a day. So I am a person that tracks every single hour of the day. From the moment I wake up, I track what time I woke up. I can literally tell you what I did 1 year ago on this exact date, exactly what my day looked like. I can tell you what time I woke up. I can tell you what time I had breakfast. I can tell you what time I had lunch, and so forth. So I track every single hour of the day, right? And when I say hours worked, I only count productive hours. So hours where I've actually sat down and done productive work. So for example, if I allocate time for a task to do between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., so that's a 3-hour window. Let's say, for example, it takes me 2 hours to complete that task instead of 3 hours. Okay, so I count it as a 2-hour productive window. If I didn't have any distractions, if I was purely focused on that task and I just got through it. So I'm very kind of particular about the way I track the hours that I work. I make sure that I'm tracking only productive hours where I'm actually doing stuff and getting stuff done. I'm not like one of these people that like sit down from like 9 a.m. to like 5 p.m. let's say, and although realistically, okay, it's an 8-hour window, but how many hours of actual productive work did you get done in that 8-hour window. And from what I've tracked, I'm averaging in 2024, I averaged around 19.9 hours per week, which is far less than 3 hours per day. By the way, in terms of per day, I work 7 days a week, so I'm counting this on a 7-day basis rather than a 5-day basis. If we count it on a 5-day a week basis, then on average it's less than 4 hours a day. And in terms of 2025, the average amount of hours worked was 19.2 hours. So as you can see, less than 3 hours a day, and I've generated this much in revenue. Now, if I wanted to look at my exact kind of profit numbers, it's hard to say with exact profit numbers because the year in the UK is based from April to April, so it's not based on the calendar year. But let me just go into, for example, 2023 and 2024. My total turnover was £44,900, which I think is like well over $50,000. The operating profit for that year was 22K, so slightly over 50%. And after taxes, like I said, it's around 40% level. Yeah. So I'm not just talking out of my ass. 2024 to 2025 year, which was the previous year. I guess, yeah, from April 2024 to April 2025, the total revenue was £71,900, which is in profit £34,000. After taxes, it's around like 40%. And then for this year, from April 2025 to April 2026, which hasn't been completed yet, it's £49,000 in revenue. So let me just add these up real quick. So since I left the UK and I started traveling the world, I have made a total of £165,000 in revenue, which is, if I check that number right now, $165,000 to dollars. Yeah, that's well over $200,000. It's $220,000 over the last 2.5 years since I left the UK with no income. I left the UK with no income, and I managed to make all of this money. Obviously, I only kept like around 40% of it after taxes, but yeah, so it's not a bad amount. And the fact that I've only worked on average less than 3 hours a day during that time period, it just goes to show, like, if you really are consistent with stuff like outreach and you've got a decent enough sales process in place, you're going to be able to make money. Now, where I'm currently at is I've made around 4.4K in revenue this month. It's around 4.5K, but after Stripe fees, it's 4.4K, which in dollars is well over 5K in dollars. That's where I'm at right now. I'm making just over 5K a month in dollars. Profit margin on that, again, is like 40% after taxes. Now, in terms of where I want to be is I want to switch my business model. So whereas the service I'm offering right now has like a 60 to 70% profit margin, the service I want to offer has a profit margin of 90% or more. And the fact that I can charge more because I can get results much quicker for the clients that I'm working with. So next year, I'm basically starting from like a blank slate. I'm essentially treating it like I don't have any income. Of course I do, but I'm starting a whole new business model. Essentially, it's the same business model, but it's like a different outreach system. It's a different sales process. It's a different offer. So it's going to be interesting to see how long it takes me to start generating revenue with this particular model. In my previous model, which is the one I'm working with right now, when I left the UK, I left in March 2023, and it wasn't until August 2023 when I first generated revenue. So March, April, May, June, July, August. So 6 months before I started generating revenue with the previous one. With this one, if I can start generating revenue within 6 months and just get like some sort of proof of concept, firstly, the revenue that I generate will be way more, because going into the second half of the year, I can just scale it and really have like a massive impact on revenue. But yeah, I'm excited. And from now on, like, I'm only going to share profit numbers on this channel. I'm not going to be talking about revenue. A lot of people, like I mentioned at the start of this video, they like to throw out these big revenue numbers like, oh, I made this much money in a month, or I made this much money in a year. But it's like when you actually look at how much money they're keeping, that's really what matters in business. You know, if I had kept 90% of what I had made over the last 2.5 years, I'd be in a completely different position to where I am right now, you know. Right now I'm in Thailand, in Bangkok. I'm pretty much living on like $1,000 a month. And the reason why I've lowered my expenses is because my current business is shaky. Like I have 3 clients and I'm making 4.5K a month in revenue in pounds, over 5K in dollars. But the reality is, if one of my clients decides to cancel, a big part of my revenue is gone. If 2 of them decide to cancel, pretty much all of my revenue is gone. So I'm not in a good position right now, and I don't have any new leads in the pipeline just because I've switched off my old acquisition system. So I'm in a situation now where I need to figure out what I'm going to do next and how I can actually make it work. Otherwise, you know, okay, I have a safety net, I have runway, so I can figure it out. But the reality is I don't want to be eating into my savings. I'd rather just start generating revenue before I get to that point. So that is kind of like a summary of everything. And yeah, in terms of my outreach system, I'm basically going to use the same formula where I was spending like 2 hours a week on outreach to be able to get to this point largely. And I'm going to be adding some extra tweaks to it as well. Like I'm going to be adding more follow-ups to the sequence. I'm going to be, you know, physically actually calling people that have shown an interest in the emails. And yeah, we're going to see what levels we can take it to in 2026. My like baseline goal is that I want to double my revenue from these previous years. So on average, my revenue from these years has been around 60 to 70K. I would say around 65K is like the average over the last 2 years. So if I can get it to 120K in revenue or more in 2026, then I've essentially doubled my revenue. And because, like I said, the new service that I'm going to be offering is going to have way higher profit margins. I'm going to be able to keep way more of that money, and I can reinvest into the business to grow my team, and I can also obviously keep more of the profit as well. And then the plan is, once I have a stable client base and a service that I'm delivering true value with, then the plan is to move my business from the UK to another jurisdiction, at which point I can pay pretty much 0% corporation tax, and personal income taxes in Thailand are just based on how much money you spend in the country, not based on how much money total that you pay yourself. So as long as I keep my expenses low in Thailand and I move my company outside of the UK, I can essentially lower my tax rate to like less than 5% overall, maybe even 1 or 2%, depending on how much I'm spending in Thailand. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, if I can double or even triple my revenue in 2026, I'm going to be buying myself either a Cartier watch, because I've looked into them and they don't actually lose value, or I'm going to be buying a Rolex if I get the phone call, which is probably not going to be happen, but we'll see. But yeah, in terms of 2026, I'm excited, but I'm also nervous at the same time. It's going to be a big year because I'm going to have to push myself. I'm going to have to work way harder than I have worked this year. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm nervous. There's a little bit of sense of like adventure to it as well. There's a little bit of fear because I don't want to be in a position where I have no income. So that's kind of pushing me as well. And then there's also the fact that, you know, I'm in my new place now. I've kind of settled in, and I just want to wake up every single day, make progress towards my goals. And honestly, like, if looking back on my journey, if you look at the first ever video on this channel when I started, my dream was literally to have the freedom to be able to improve every aspect of myself, become the best version of myself, and be able to make money online. And over the last 2.5 years, after I've left the UK, I've been able to do that. And watching those videos back, even though it was such a long time ago and it took me so long to hit the targets that I wanted to hit, it just goes to show, like, if you don't give up and you just keep going, eventually you will hit your targets. And I'm not stopping here. This is not even the beginning yet. I wouldn't even consider that I've made any real money until I've hit at least 6 figures in a year in profit after tax. So until I hit that point, I don't even think I've even started the game yet. I'm just like warming up, but hopefully we can break that barrier next year. And then if I can break that barrier next year in 2026 of 6 figures in profit in a single year, then it only makes sense to go for 7 figures the next year. And that's going to be crazy. But you got to think big, You got to think big. I might be staying in a $280 a month apartment in Thailand right now, but the reality is, with the right mindset, with the right discipline, and just waking up every single day and doing what you need to do, it's just proof. Like, this is the last 2.5 years has just been proof for me on doing it. And it's not even about working crazy hours. It's just about picking what you want to do, sticking to it, and just being consistent every single day. Make a little bit of progress every single day. And even though I haven't made millions, I've done okay for myself so far over the last 2.5 years. All whilst traveling the world, by the way. I've been to multiple countries, lived in multiple places, and I've managed to generate some revenue online, which was always a dream of mine. So if you're watching this and you've never made money online, just keep going. Like, just try, just make sure you stay consistent. Like, if you're going to send out emails, don't just send them out for a week and then stop. If you're going to make cold calls, don't just make cold calls for a week and stop, which is what I used to do. Be consistent with it. Show up every single day. Even if you do 1 or 2 hours, 3 hours a day, if you're consistent every single week, every single month, over the years, you will hit your targets, and you'll just be pushing for more and more and more. So thanks for watching this video. Let me know if you got any lessons from it. If you have any questions as well, leave them in the comments and I'll answer them. But yeah, this is going to be an exciting journey in 2026, and I'm looking forward to having you follow along with me.